G'day, Snowy Legends, and welcome back. It's week 11, chapter 11, and we're back with Ryth. Considering I didn't do it last week and the content we had last week, I want to pop up a quick trigger warning and an explicit content warning. Because obviously we're starting to get into the heat of things right now, so I want to just get ahead of the ball, and from now on you'll be getting trigger or explicit content warnings, or both. Actually, I'll probably just do both because it's going to be easier that way. Okay, chapter 11, Ryth. It all felt like a bad dream when I woke up the next morning. My head was full and throbbing, and my eyes were grainy and raw, reminding me that what had happened last night was real. My mum and Creed were getting married, and she wanted me to be her bridesmaid. But that wasn't the only thing that my mind had trouble understanding. The memory of what Tobias had done to me rose like a storm, destructive and dangerous. I closed my eyes, my pulse triggered by the memory of his hand on my thighs, pulling my legs open. God, his fingers were inside me. I slid my hand under the sheets and reached down. I was already wet at the thought of him. Those dark, brooding eyes, that pouty fucking mouth. You want me to drive you, Ryth? I'll drive you on the end of my cock. Oh God. I slid my finger inside, then around my clit, dancing on the slick flesh. Ryth, honey, Mum called from the other side of the door, tearing me from that moment. Yeah, I kept my eyes closed, my fingers still sliding in. You going to school today? I wrenched my eyes open as reality hit hard. Tobias and Nick. Nick, who I thought was a friend, but he was no friend. He was just as dangerous as his brother. No, I'm not going. Honey, you might want to tell Nick that. He's downstairs waiting to drive you. He tore through me in an instant. I shoved upwards and scrambled out of the bed. He's what? He's waiting to drive you to school, honey, Mum murmured. He's been incredibly nice. My insides clenched, that need pulsing between my thighs. He can't possibly. I stumbled over to the window and peered out. He was leaning against the Mustang. His muscled arms were crossed over his chest, bare from his cut-off sleeves. As though he knew I was watching, he slowly lifted his gaze to my window, those dark, intense eyes daring me. No, this can't be happening. There's no way I can go down there. No way I can get in his car and pretend like last night never happened. No fucking way. I don't think it's a good idea for you to miss school on your second day. Besides, you said you had a friend now, didn't you? Gio. His face pressed to the surface. He'd be waiting, standing outside the classroom. I unleashed a moan and closed my eyes. Good girl, honey, Mum's voice drifted through the door. I'll let Nick know you're on your way down. I swallowed hard, listening to her steps fade from outside my door. I didn't understand this world, this battleground I found myself in. I didn't understand it at all. But I had to, because this was now my life. And living here with the three of them, my new stepbrothers. I made my way to my dresser. My fingers brushed the white formal shirt Jukes insisted you wear before tossing it onto the bed. My underwear was next, then my knee-length navy blue skirt. Of all the schools to send me to, you had to send me to one with a uniform. I grabbed my things and hurried to the bathroom, casting a glare towards Tobias's room as I went. I hurried, locking the door behind me. I had to be smarter now. Had to be more careful around them. I closed my eyes, swaying with the memory of Nick's ravenous stare as he watched Tobias do what he did to me last night. Then I opened my eyes, undressed, and raced for the shower. By the time I was done dressed, Nick was scowling. I strode out, clutching my laptop to my chest like a barrier. You want to make me wait, Ryth? Nick cast me a pissed off look as he shoved off the car and strode to the driver's door, motioning with his head. Get in and don't be an idiot. Your mum's watching. I glanced over my shoulder to where my mum stood in the open doorway. She gave me a careful smile and a wave of her hand. Standing there, still dressed in her black negligee and matching satin gown, I waved back, my anger prickly and hot against my cheeks before making my way around the car and climbing in. Nick reached forward and started the engine. I wanted to snap at him, wanted to unleash the tirade that shrieked in my head as I pressed myself as hard as I could against the door. But he never said a word. He just threw the Mustang into reverse, gripped the back of my seat, and punched the accelerator. I swallowed, trying not to let my attention creep to the way his arm was almost around me. But my gaze went to the corded muscles his arms. Anyway, that didn't make sense, sorry. Muscles that flexed as I stared. He was strong and built, chiseled pecs tightened as my gaze drifted. We drove through the gate and out onto the street, pulling away from the house in no time. That thunder in my head rumbled as the tension between us grew. I forced my gaze to the dashboard, then found myself moving it back to his hands, remembering the way he'd grabbed my arm, holding me in place, while Tobias touched me. I swallowed hard, swaying as the car pulled hard across the street and accelerated. I jerked my focus to where we were headed and found unfamiliar streets. Where are we? He didn't answer and just glared with a broody stare, his hard jaw flexing before he turned again. Nick! Panic filled me as trees gave way to buildings and the entrance to a park appeared ahead. He braked, then pulled the Mustang in, heading to the parking spot that faced the trees. I scanned the area, finding that we were alone. No kids played on the playground, nobody walked their dog. Nick killed the engine and then turned to me. You want to look at me, Ryth? Fire lushed my cheeks as I stared straight ahead. He just shifted, gripped the back of my seat and leaned across, getting in my space. You want to talk about last night then? I shook my head as panic surged. I felt his gaze, then drifting down my body, taking the white shirt and pleat navy skirt in. Christ, he muttered and looked away. He was angry. I didn't know who he was angry at, himself or me. I thought you were a friend. The words just slipped out. I hated that they had. Was desperate to swallow them back down, but it was too late. They were free, lingering between us. He drew in a hard, deep breath, then glanced back at me. You want me to be your friend, Ryth? I didn't know what to say. At least an ally. An ally? He growled, then shifted his gaze to my lap. My body responded, warming and throbbing. I didn't understand why I was so affected by them, why they seemed to tap into that dark, aching place inside me. He reached out, brushed his fingers along my thigh, and drew my skirt higher. I'm not your friend. You're family now, he murmured. His gaze riveted to my thigh as he exposed it inch by inch. I grabbed the skirt, yanking the hem down. I saw you, you know. My hands stilled, fisted against my leg. He lifted his gaze to mine yesterday in the car. Heat raced to my cheeks as shame rioted. I was fixing my jeans. Liar. His golden eyes darkened to amber. My breath deepened and I fought the need to lick my lips. You were touching yourself. My body throbbed as he searched my gaze. You're our little sister now. Stepsister, I snapped. And not yet, anyway. He gave a shrug. It'll happen. My dad is different with Elle. He likes her. A lot. I shook my head and glanced around the park, desperate to find out a way out of this, but there was no one. And being our stepsister, well, we want to make sure you're taken care of. Nick tugged my skirt once more, forcing the fabric from under my grip. We want to make sure you're getting what you need. Throb. My body betrayed me and I closed my eyes. Please, Nick. I want to make sure you're doing yourself right. I flinched and jerked my gaze to his. He wasn't a friend. None of them were. They were... I didn't know what they were. He licked his lips. His gaze moved to my thigh again. So I want you to show me. You what? Show me. Throb. Fear and excitement stole my breath. I couldn't keep up, not with the rush of air thundering in my head. You're a virgin, right? Shame swallowed me. I couldn't answer. I couldn't think. I glanced outside the car once more. No one comes here, he assured. It's just you and me, and no different from yesterday. You can pretend I'm not even here. I clenched my jaw, that heat rising with his words. Are you a virgin? Yes. His breath stilled before a panicked look swept across his face. When he spoke again, his voice was husky. Then show me. Show me how you take care of yourself. He wasn't letting go. He wasn't letting this go. Not until I gave him what he wanted. The battle of right and wrong consumed me. Everything had changed in one night. Mum would be married to Creed soon enough, and I'd have to call these men my brothers. But they weren't brothers, not by blood. And the way they looked at me, throb. I dragged my teeth across my lip and widened my thighs, slowly sliding my hand between them. That's the way, he urged. I need to make sure my little sister is satisfied. I pushed my hand over my panties and closed my eyes with embarrassment before I pulled away. I can't. You can, he tugged my skirt higher. It's just you and me, no one else. I won't even touch you unless you want me to. Lightning tore through me and I jerked my eyes open and met his gaze. Angle your body towards me, Ryth, he demanded. Muscles quivered as I lifted my knee and turned. I held his gaze, my own desperate need roaring to the surface as I slipped my hand between my thighs once more. Are those Hello Kitty panties? I swallowed and nodded. Pink hearts against the white, I slid my hand along my crease and let out a moan. He froze, unable to breathe, riveted by the way my hand moved against my body until he murmured, "Lift your leg higher." I did, pressing my spine against the armrest of the door, dropping my thighs wider until he saw all of me. I could just touch myself a few times and moan a little. He'd think I was done, and then this would be over. I tried to focus, deepening my breaths, this time keeping my eyes open. God, if anyone saw us, if anyone saw me. I slid my finger deeper, finding the hollow of my body. My panties were already warm and wet. Jesus Christ, Ryth. My hand trembled as I fought my body's desire and quickened my breaths, forced a moan, closing my eyes, stilling my hand before I tugged my skirt back down. He moved fast, grabbing my hand. What the fuck are you doing? I opened my eyes, the mark on my cheek burning. What do you mean? I'm done. His anger lashed deep. The hell you are. He knew, one look in his eyes, and I realized he knew. I lowered my gaze to where his cock bulged against his jeans. Then I found that savage glare once more. Do it again, he demanded, this time properly. I started to shake my head, but the curl of his lip stopped me. I'm not moving this car until you do it, Ryth. The hard edge of his tone told me the truth. He wouldn't, not until I gave him what he wanted. So I slowly lowered my hand, my fingers finding the burn between my thighs, and I started moving, rubbing. Slower. I did, easing down until I found that damp patch of my panties. I want to see you. He met my gaze. Pull them aside. My belly trembled, but I did as he told me, sliding my finger under the elastic and slid them to the side. Jesus motherfucking Christ. My pussy clenched and my clit pulsed as I slid my fingers along the sensitive flesh. Deeper. I sank in, sliding 2 fingers into the center of me, and they came away wet. So goddamn beautiful. He licked his lips, and I was caught by the movement. His lips, his mouth, his tongue sliding into me. I unleashed a moan as the world fell away, taking the shame along with it. The end was coming closer as my body rocked, driving against my own touch. I sank deeper, sliding out to rub only to return again. Tiny pulses grew, clenching around my fingers. In my mind, they were his fingers. Nick's, Caleb's, Tobias's. That wave crashed over me, squeezing and quivering and releasing. I dropped my head backward and cried out. Blackness ate away the edges of my vision. My pussy trembled against my fingers as I slid them out and went to wipe them on my skirt. No. I flinched at the demand, having forgotten for a second that he was there, and opened my eyes. Nick reached over, those dark amber eyes glinting in a strange, dangerous way as he grabbed my wrist and pulled it closer. He opened his mouth and slid my fingers inside. Warmth consumed me as he sucked, sliding his tongue between them, taking all he could. He was done. When he was done, he let me go, then turned around, started the car, and pulled out of the parking lot. He never said a word to me, just drove as I straightened up and tugged my skirt down. Desperation rose in the wake of what I'd just done. I didn't know what to say when he pulled up at the school's drop-off point. I'll meet you here. He sounded well and truly pissed off. And don't be talking to any boys this time. They're not boys, I fought back. Oh, he directed, that animalistic glare my way. Believe me, Ryth, they're only after one thing from you, so they're boys. And you don't, I wanted to snap. But I couldn't. All I could do was yank the handle and climb from the car, slamming the door behind me and hurrying away. Well, that certainly heated up really quickly, didn't it? Yeah, interesting, very interesting. I wonder how these drives are going to keep going. But yeah, until next week, we're back with Tobias, I think, next week. Oh no, chapter 12, we're with Nick. So until then, smutty reading and love, love.